Hello, everybody, and welcome or welcome back to the second shelf and to, yes, you saw that right, a TBR video. I never do those, I know. But I thought because of Nonfiction November, and maybe you are looking for nonfiction books to participate in Nonfiction November, and if I present the books that I will read or plan to read, that might inspire you. So I read nonfiction throughout the year. If you follow my channel, you know that. It's about a good third of the books that I read are nonfiction. But of course, Nonfiction November is the month where we promote nonfiction. I will say that this year I'm not doing any prompts, I'm not looking at the prompts, trying to find books fitting the prompts, or as I normally do, trying to have the books fit forcefully into the prompts. I just picked 7 books that I definitely want to read during the month of November that may inspire you also to pick up some nonfiction. And I made a video already about bookish books for people who don't really know how to enter nonfiction, but this is hardcore nonfiction that I will talk about. And as always, all the books are listed below in the description box, alphabetical order of the author, but I don't have the stack here in alphabetical order. And I hope I will remember to do chapters, because as you might have seen, I started to do chapters. Yeah, me. Anyway, the first book is John Didion's Slouching Towards Bethlehem, published in the early 1970s, if I'm not mistaken. Almost 1968, late 60s. I'm reading this as a buddy read with Terri. We read another essay collection by Didion before this. I'm blanking on the name now, of course, because that's how I roll. And we thought we want to pick up another. These are, again, essays that Didion wrote while living in LA. So a lot of them are somehow LA related. There's also an essay about John Wayne, which is rather famous, and the title essay, which is really, really long. It's 60 pages. So we just started our buddy read, and I read the first 6 or 7 essays, and I'm now reading the title essay. So this is the first nonfiction book for this month. The next one is also a buddy read. I'm reading this with Kathleen from Kathleen Ann, For Her Own Good, by Barbara Ehrenreich and Deirdre English. 2 centuries of the experts' advice to women. This book was published in 1976. So it is not looking at recent developments, but it looks at the history. I read the first couple of chapters, and it starts with explaining the transition from what the authors call the old order, which is before the Industrial Revolution, and after the old order, when we have a marketplace, when we had factories, people not living in a community, farming, everything is kind of, they call it unitary, is in one place, and what impact that had on the development of experts, and especially also experts who give medical advice to women, which is always fun. A lot of times, at least, it's fun. So I find this really fascinating, this topic, and the first couple of chapters were absolutely engaging. So I will report back on this one once I've finished. The next one is a reread for me, one of my feminist reads, and that is Elizabeth Lesser, Cassandra Speaks, and I have to 2020. So this is a fairly recent book. As you know, if you follow my channel, if you watched some of my videos lately, I think not the last one, but the one before, I talked about the fact that I do want to spend the last two and a half, I started in October, months of the year by spending at least half of what I read is at the moment rereads. That is a conscious choice for the remainder of the year, that I pick books that I read this year. I read this last year, but also older books that I want to kind of consolidate my reading for the rest of the year. See what books I read that I really liked, but they didn't quite stick enough in my, I don't know, whole brain with all the holes in it, or books that I, want to consolidate. That's the word, the only word that I can think of, even more. And this is one of the books that I read, like I said, last year. It's about feminism, voices that are not heard or distorted, because history is sort of, not really looking at female voices. And I really liked this book, but when I looked at it on my bookshelf, I thought, I don't remember enough, I feel. So that's why I picked this long-winded explanation why I picked up this book. So I just started my reread, and it starts with origin stories. So you have Eve and Pandora, and then you have Women and Power, I think is the second one, and then you have a toolbox. How could we incorporate female voices more so that we don't lose them? If that is, I'm not explaining it very well today, I feel. But anyway, I can certainly recommend this book already because I read it and I liked it. But I want to reread it to hopefully remember more, and then I can talk more intelligently about the book, maybe. Who knows? The next one is a memoir. Jane Schilling, The Stranger in the Mirror, memoir, a memoir of middle age, and this book was published in 2011. I came across this book when reading another book about middle age that I will talk about at some time, because it's not on my list for November. And I had never heard of this. Jane Schilling is an art critic or book critic in the UK. She works for the Daily Telegraph, the Sunday Telegraph, the Daily Mail, and she also wrote a book about hunting, and she lives in Greenwich with her son. And this is obviously, like it says, her memoir about middle age. And I find that topic fascinating, even though I'm way beyond middle age. I'm making the transition to old age now. I'm 64. And funnily enough, I did not really have this kind of middle age thing. So that's why I guess I find it fascinating how other women experience that transition from, young, kind of youngish, not maybe young anymore, middle age. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this one. The next I wanted to show, even though I'm not 100% sure that I will read it in November, but it's the pick for November, December of my 6 classics. I put the last 3 in the description box, and that is the Gossamer Years, translated from the Japanese by Edward Seidensticker, and you will notice that there is no author mentioned. It's, if you look at Goodreads, the author is called Michitsuna no Haha. And if I understood it correctly, it means the mother of Michitsuna. So we don't really know her name. She was a courtier, as it says here, in Imperial Japan in the middle of the 10th century. And this book is her diary. So it is, I think the first couple of entries are at the beginning of the 10th century, middle, 954. So it's around the same time that the Tale of Genji was written. And I find these old kind of diary things really fascinating. So I'm looking forward to this. But like I said, I'm not sure that I will read it now in November, but I wanted to show it anyway. Also, because if you want to join me in the last classic that we will read in 2024, you now have enough time, to find the book at the library or used bookstore or ebook, decide whether you want to read it. Gossamer Years. Then the next one is a book that is the November pick of the Book Naturalist Book Club. You probably all know about that. That's the book club is run by Heidi from My Reading Life and Doris from All the Books, and they both want us to read more nonfiction / sometimes fiction about nature. It's about books about nature. They come up with a list of 1 or 2 books each month. I'm very much looking forward to next year's list. They publish the list on YouTube always quite early, so that you have plenty of time to try to see which books speak to you, which books you want to join. And the November book was certainly something that I thought, that sounds really, really interesting, and I'm happy that I was able to get it. And that is Fresh Banana Leaves by Jessica Hernandez. And as you can see from the subtitle, it's about indigenous science. So Jessica Hernandez, I think we have a picture. Yes, here's the author picture. She is what is called a transnational indigenous scholar. So she is a Maya scholar but lives in the US. I think she teaches in New York, but I'm not 100% sure. And this is her contemplations about the impact of climate change, environmental issues on indigenous landscapes and indigenous people, and a look, if I understood it correctly, a look how indigenous science and a certain outlook by indigenous people can help us to deal with these issues. That sounded really fascinating. I will have to say that I looked at Goodreads, and normally I don't really care that much about ratings on Goodreads, but I saw a couple of comments that were not that positive, especially when it came, and they are contemplating about bad editing. So we'll see about that, but the topic is certainly something that I find fascinating. Fresh Banana Leaves. The last book is a reread for me, but I'm now buddy reading it with Heidi from My Reading Life, and for her it's a first read, so I think that's always interesting. And that is Codependent. Book is big. Codependent by Madhumita Murgia. I'm always rolling the R when I'm saying her name, which is stupid because she's Indian American, so there is absolutely no need to roll the R like in Murgia. But anyway, this book was published earlier this year, and I read it earlier this year. It was shortlisted for the Women's Prize Nonfiction, and I really thought it was a good book. But again, like with Cassandra Speaks, I felt I didn't retain as much as I would have liked to. So there's certainly need to reread it. Now, this is obviously about artificial intelligence, but so that you don't have wrong expectations about the book. It's not like a political pamphlet, or is artificial intelligence good? Is it bad? Should we regulate? That's not the issue. The issue here is that Sorry, this is another text message. We will just ignore that. But this is more looking at the implications of artificial intelligence and the development. Because artificial intelligence, unlike in movies where you have this human-like robot that is not distinguishable from the outside from a human being and has, intelligence, has a brain. That's not how what artificial intelligence is, at least not yet. It's basically an algorithm-based software. So like self-driving cars. That's artificial intelligence. And she looks, for instance, if we stay with this example of self-driving cars, she looks at people who develop that software, and not the Steve Jobs of the world, but people, for instance, in Bulgaria, who look at videos of cars driving all day, and then they mark tree to the left, ball rolling into the road to the right, in order to feed the algorithm so that a software that will drive a car can be properly developed and is safe to use. So she looks at that part of artificial intelligence. And I thought that was really fascinating. But like I said, I just did not retain enough. So I'm very much looking forward to the reread of that. So these are the 6 plus 1 books that I will certainly read, and maybe the 7th, Gossamer Years, I'm not sure yet. I hope you enjoyed my list. Let me know what you read for Nonfiction November, whether any of those inspired you. Any other comment you might have. As always, I'm very much looking forward to your comments. You know that. And I'll see you all soon in the next one, next Sunday.